Welcome back to my channel. I'm Jhonna, and this is Jhonna Unfiltered. Today we're switching back to the personality and Chinese zodiac combination series, and this one is a topic I find genuinely interesting. We're looking at INFJ combined with the year of the horse. And I want to start by saying that this combination surprised me a little when I first started researching it, because at first glance, the INFJ and the horse don't seem like they'd go together naturally. One is deeply internal and reflective. The other is energetic, restless, and freedom-driven. But the more I looked at it, the more I realized that the tension between those two energies is exactly what makes this combination so compelling. Before I get into it, the usual disclaimer: I'm not an astrologer. I'm not a psychologist. This is my learning diary, and I share what I find because I'm genuinely curious and because I think a lot of you are too. These frameworks are tools for reflection, not rigid definitions. Take what fits, leave what doesn't, and please don't put yourself in a box based on any of this. Now, let me explain both pieces of this combination separately before we put them together. First, the INFJ side. INFJ stands for introverted, intuitive, feeling, and judging. People who identify with this type tend to have a very rich and active inner world. They feel things deeply. They think in terms of meaning and purpose. They're perceptive about people and situations in a way that often surprises those around them. They're also private, selective about who they trust, and they can be intensely focused on a goal or a cause they believe in. INFJs are often described as the type that feels things everyone else feels but can't quite name, and then somehow finds words for it. They're also known for the door slam, which is when they've reached the end of their patience with a person or a situation. They exit completely and permanently without much visible drama. Now, the horse in Chinese astrology. The horse is one of the most energetic and freedom-loving signs in the Chinese zodiac cycle. Horse years include 1954, 1966, 1978, 1990, 2002, 2014, and 2026. People born in horse years are traditionally described as independent, charismatic, and action-oriented. They don't like being restricted. They don't like routine that doesn't serve a purpose they believe in. They're often socially engaging, sometimes surprisingly bold, and they have a restlessness about them that pushes them to keep moving, keep growing, keep seeking something more. So what happens when you combine the deeply internal, meaning-driven INFJ with the restless, freedom-hungry energy of the horse? The first thing I noticed is that this combination doesn't sit still as easily as the typical INFJ description might suggest. The horse energy disrupts the INFJ tendency to stay inside their own head and simply observe. It adds an urgency, a need to move towards something, to act on what they understand rather than just sitting with it. And for a type that can sometimes get stuck in planning and reflecting and waiting until things are perfectly clear, that push from the horse side is actually genuinely useful. The INFJ horse is, in my view, more action-oriented than the typical INFJ. They still have all the depth. They still process things thoroughly before they act. But they're less likely to stay stuck in that processing phase indefinitely. When they see something clearly, they move. And they move with a kind of quiet determination that can feel surprising to people who only knew the reserved, observant version of this person. There's also a charisma to this combination that's worth noting. Horses are naturally engaging. They have a social magnetism that tends to draw people in. For an INFJ, who is often intensely private and selective about social interaction, that horse energy creates an interesting dynamic. They can be very engaging in certain contexts, particularly when they're talking about something they care about or in situations where they feel they have a purpose. But as soon as that context is gone, they withdraw. The social energy doesn't sustain itself. It runs on meaning, not on general sociability. This makes the INFJ horse look, to people who only see them in certain contexts, much more extroverted than they actually are. And then those same people are genuinely confused when this person disappears, needs significant time alone, or declines social invitations without much explanation. The two sides of this combination are operating at the same time but in different modes, and the person doesn't always have the energy to explain which mode they're in. Let me talk about independence, because this is probably the most defining feature of this particular combination. Both the INFJ type and the horse sign share a very strong core need for autonomy. The INFJ values independence because their inner world is so rich and so personal that external control over it feels genuinely violating. They need to be the author of their own life. The horse values independence because restriction is simply incompatible with its nature. It needs to move. It needs space. It needs to pursue what it's pursuing without being fenced in. Together, this means the INFJ horse has a very low tolerance for any relationship, environment, or situation that feels controlling or suffocating. They can tolerate discomfort for a cause they believe in. They can endure difficult circumstances if there's a clear purpose to the endurance. But when something or someone makes them feel like they don't have the freedom to be who they are, or to live according to their own values and choices, the response tends to be complete. They don't usually negotiate their freedom. They just find their way out. This is the combination that makes the INFJ door slam even more definitive. Because the horse doesn't look back. Once they've moved past something, the energy is already elsewhere. And the INFJ had already processed the decision internally before anyone else knew it was being made. Let me talk about the push and pull that lives inside this combination because it's significant. The INFJ wants deep connection, meaningful relationships, the kind of closeness where someone truly understands them and they truly understand someone else. That longing is real. But the horse wants freedom and space and the ability to move without being held. And those two needs can create a very specific internal tension that shows up in relationships as a push and pull dynamic. They get close and then need distance. They open up and then retreat. They want intimacy, but feel uncomfortable when it starts to feel like dependency. This isn't inconsistency for its own sake. It's two genuine needs existing at the same time in one person, and neither one being fully satisfied at any given moment. The work for this combination is learning to communicate that dynamic honestly, rather than letting the other person feel like they're being kept at a distance without explanation. The horse also adds a quality to this combination that I find very personally relevant. The horse is a sprinter. It doesn't pace itself naturally. It goes completely into something, gives everything it has, and then needs real recovery time before it can do it again. For an INFJ, who already tends to overextend emotionally and then needs significant alone time to recover, the horse amplifies that cycle. The highs are more engaged, the lows are more depleted, and the recovery time needs to be genuinely respected rather than pushed through. This is actually a useful thing to understand about yourself if you identify with this combination, or if you know someone who does. Their energy is not infinite. When it's there, it's genuinely impressive. When it's not there, pushing them to perform anyway doesn't produce more energy. It just depletes the recovery faster. In terms of work and career, this combination does best with flexibility and purpose. They're not built for rigid structures or micromanagement. They're built for environments where they have meaningful work and enough autonomy to approach it in their own way. Teaching, writing, counseling, creative work, content creation, anything where their depth of understanding and their independence can coexist, tends to suit them well. And remote or solo work, where they can set their own rhythm, is often where they do their best thinking. They also tend to be excellent at identifying what matters and cutting through what doesn't. The horse doesn't waste time on things it doesn't believe in. The INFJ doesn't engage shallowly. Together, this means the INFJ horse tends to be very good at directing energy purposefully once they've found the purpose that's worth the energy. The growth area for this combination is learning to stay. Not in situations that are genuinely wrong for them, but in the moments of discomfort that are actually part of building something real. The horse's instinct is to run when something feels restrictive. But sometimes what feels like a cage is actually just the commitment phase of a meaningful project or relationship. Learning to distinguish between the two is some of the most important personal work for this combination. Before I close, I'd love to hear from you. If you're an INFJ and you were born in the year of the horse, does this description feel accurate to you? And if not, what feels different? Drop it in the comments, because I'm genuinely curious how this combination shows up in real people's actual lives, and your experience adds something I can't find in research alone. Thanks for watching. If this video resonated with you, please consider hitting the subscribe button. I want to be upfront and share that I use this text-to-speech voice to tell my stories because as a full-time ESL teacher, I have to be very careful with my vocal cords. Managing vocal nodules means I have to save my voice for my students, but I didn't want that to stop me from sharing these unfiltered thoughts with you. I'm Jhonna, and I'm currently working toward my goal of 1,000 subscribers so I can finally monetize this channel and turn this passion into a sustainable part of my future. This is my diary of solo living here in the Philippines, and your support, whether through a comment or a sub, helps me keep this channel growing. If you would like to help out even more, you can check out the Buy a Treat for My Pets link in the description. My dogs definitely appreciate the love. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss the next update. Thank you for being such an important part of this journey. I'm Jhonna, and I will see you in the next one.